Hi guys, as you can see, I'm really having a hard time choosing the right vocabulary to express what I'm trying to get across in the free will series here. And this is entirely my fault, but it is causing a lot of confusion in terms of the concepts that I want to get across. When use a word like choice, right? I mean, like any small English word, choice has many different meanings. We use it in many different contexts, or like the word like should. We use that in many different contexts. And I want to assign very specific, technical meanings to these words. Um, but it's really hard. I mean, I could do like the Heidegger thing, and not use the word like myself, instead use the word like Dasein or something, right? That way, it would make it really plain that I'm trying to assign specific technical senses to these words. But I'm kind of a plain spoken guy, and it's just not my style. I think it causes more confusion in the long run than it does in the short run. So let's see if we can muddle through this short term confusion here. I was talking to I was answering a comment by Bubonic Nate, and I think he really gave me a framework in order to like really express what I'm talking about here. Okay. When I'm doing things like claiming, you can't attribute should to a rock, or you can't attribute choice to an animal. And here's how I'm going to package it up. Okay, this is the parable of the broccoli hating child. Okay, so say you are a parent and you are trying to get your kid to eat broccoli, and the kid, of course, does not like to eat broccoli. What do you do? What techniques can you use to get your kid to eat the broccoli, right? So you're trying to impose your power onto this kid. You're trying to predict and control the kid's behavior. Absolutely, right? Very Machiavellian. Okay, I'm going to talk about four different ways in which you can do this, right? The first way that I'm going to talk about is just the basic standard, it's a simple matter of physics. What kind of force do you have to apply to a broccoli-shaped object to cram it down the kid's throat? Force feeding, right? If you treat your kid just like a physical object and the piece of broccoli like a physical object, well, you can use Newton's laws and calculate exactly their trajectories and all this kind of stuff, okay? So that's the first way that you can do it, force feeding, right? Now, of course, this is going to be very traumatic to the child. Why is this? Okay, because you are not treating the child as a person. Okay, even children know that they are people, that they are persons, they have personhood. And if you're doing something like this, you really are denying their personhood in a very fundamental way, right? But notice this is exactly the way that you control rocks, right? You have no other way of controlling, say, a rock or an inanimate object, other than applying forces to it and this kind of stuff, right? Same goes with computers. Okay, I'll talk about exception later, but computers are the same way. Okay, if you want to get a computer to do what you're doing, you have to force it. Okay, you have to press those keys. You have to click the mouse a certain way. You have to make sure the voltages are right on the inputs and outputs. Okay, you've got to treat the computer as if you're force feeding a child, basically. Okay, so that's like the first level, right? Okay. Now, obviously, the kid has no choice here whether it's going to be eat the broccoli or not if you're force feeding it, right? It is inappropriate to attribute choice to the kid if he doesn't just regurgitate the broccoli afterwards, right? Same goes with a rock. Okay, you can't say that the rock chose to roll downhill, or the rock yielded to the force of gravity or anything like this without serious anthropomorphizing, right? The proof of that, okay, is that the child is a person. And if you treat the child as you're treating the rock or as you're treating the computer, the child will protest. Because even the child knows that it has personhood, that you're transgressing by treating it this way. Okay? So, ergo, it is inappropriate to attribute choice to rocks, or saying rocks should roll downhill or should not roll downhill in the same way. Okay? Second way I'm going to talk about, how else can you do it? If you don't want to force feed your kid, how else can you do it? Well, you can beat them if they don't eat the broccoli, right? And you can withhold their ice cream if they don't eat it, and you can give them their ice cream if they eat it. Okay, this is just operant conditioning, right? Basically, you're treating your child like a lab rat at this point, like an animal. Okay, so you can do this to animals too. All right, but still, I would argue this is not a choice. All right, now I'm going to get a little bit personal here, right? I'm overweight, and the reason I'm overweight is because I find myself compulsively eating even after I'm full. Now, why is this? Okay, when I was a child, right, my parents made me finish everything that was on my plate, whether I was full or not. And so, now I find myself, even if I'm already full, I will finish whatever's on my plate. I will compulsively eat. Okay, and this isn't a choice on my part. It happens at a subconscious level. Right, it's irrational behavior. So, this kind of, operant conditioning that you do to an animal or something like this, it's not really they will behave the way you want them to, okay? But their behavior this way is not really a choice that they're following. It's just a stimulus response. You've programmed them, okay? So this is kind of analogous to programming a computer as opposed to just, using a program that's already done. Or sometimes if you can program computers to do like a learning program. Most of the programs that we use on computers aren't learning programs this way. Most of the programs we use, we're treating the computer like a rock, basically. Input, output, physically manipulating it. But computers can do this, and animals do this, right? This is a level which animals share with humans this way, okay? But if you have a child, there's two more ways that you can get the child to eat the broccoli, right? Which have nothing to do. You can't use them on rocks, and you can't use them on animals, and you can't yet use them on computers. Maybe in the future we'll be able to program computers for this, but not now, okay? Okay, the first way I'm going to talk about is shame. Now, this works best in a social context, right? Say you've already gotten your daughter to eat her broccoli, right? By either beating her or doing the ice cream thing or force feeding her or whatnot. So your daughter is eating the broccoli fine, right? Your son won't eat the broccoli. So what do you say? Don't you want to be a good boy? The rule is you eat your broccoli around here. Look, your sister, she's a good girl, okay? Don't you want to be good like your sister? In other words, you impose a norm on your child. You impose a rule on your child. The rule is you eat the broccoli. And if you want to be good, okay, now this is all normative terms to talk about. You should eat your broccoli. This is a norm. This is the way we do it. If you want to be good, if you want to be accepted by the society, if you want to be like your peers, right? Okay, so notice the reason that this only works on children of speaking age is because this kind of imposition of norms requires language to do it. You can't impose this kind of a norm without language. All right. Now, you can force feed a child that doesn't have language, and you can do this operant conditioning. You can beat a child that doesn't have language and withhold its ice cream and this kind of stuff, just as you can a lab rat that doesn't have language. But this using of shame, okay, this imposition of a norm, this saying that you should do something, right? This is something that is only possible with language users, okay? And it's a normative thing. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about normative behavior, okay? Now there's one more way I'm going to talk about very briefly, and I think it's the most it's the most authentically human way to treat your child, and that is to give your child a choice, right? If they don't like broccoli, offer them orange slices instead, or something like this, right? There's plenty of foods out there. In the past, we didn't have all this stuff. You couldn't get fresh fruits year round. You had to eat broccoli sometimes, right? But these days, you can't. Give your child a selection. You can say orange slices, apple slices, all kinds of stuff that's out there that's as nutritious as broccoli. Okay, this I think is treating your child authentically as if they have free will. Now, you might be thinking to yourself at this point, well, isn't this all just control? Okay, aren't you in each one of these cases treating your child like an input-output machine? Okay, now there's a very important sense in which you're not doing this. Okay, but to explain this, let me go over the chalkboard and put them all up next to each other so we can compare them. So I've put the 4 ways here in order from top to bottom, but notice something very interesting. At the very top, you have a 100% guaranteed deterministic process if you're force feeding your kid. The kid it's 100% guaranteed the broccoli is going down the kid's throat. But at the end, there's no way to predict. And in fact, these are kind of like along a continuum here, right? The more choice you give to your kid, the more you treat your kid as if the kid has free will, the less deterministic the behavior is here, the less guarantee that you have that the kid will do what you want to do. Right? I mean, operant conditioning, beating them will only work on, there's going to be some kids that are going to fight for the right to party. They hate eating broccoli even more than they hate the pain of getting beat. So they're just not going to eat it no matter what. Right? Shame is definitely not guaranteed, right? Okay, you may get them to eat their broccoli. You may turn them into a rebel without a cause. It may turn them into, a antisocial person. It may turn them into, someone who just says, listen, I'm not going to obey these stupid society norms. Um, and in choice, of course, there's explicitly no way to predict. You're explicitly giving them a choice here. So that's the thing. It's like, this is not treating a kid, using shame, using norm governed behavior to control your kids is not the same thing as treating them as an input output system. Because you are explicitly, if you're using shame, you're explicitly giving up any kind of deterministic guarantee that the kid will do what you want them to do.